Welcome to the city of brotherly girls.
All right. I'm here with the legendary Wali Jones, Philadelphia through and through. Overbrook High School, Villanova to the NBA, all rookie first team with the Milwaukee Bucks, and then on to the Sixers, where he was the starting guard for the 66-67 greatest Philadelphia team of all time. Game one, 30 points, 8 of 6, six rebounds, right? Right, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, man, you got good memory there.
I know I'm a big hoops guy, so I knew all about you. I play on the video game on NBA 2K.
Get
Back
out of
in the
here.
day.
All
Yeah,
right, man.
you're on
Well,
the
it's
Sixers.
just a little correction. I was with the Baltimore Bullets where I made the NBA All Rookie team.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, people don't know this, but I graduated in February from Overbrook High School. We had won 2 championships with the greats like Wayne Hightower, Richie Richmond, or Walt Hazard. And then I graduated in February, but people don't know that I went to Temple Prep School.
Oh wow.
I went, I went to Temple Prep where I was 18-1 with some of the great ball players, Germantown's Obie Snyder, the leading scorer, Bobby Fies, Raymond Ray, many great players that I played against. But people don't realize that back in those days that we went to school in February and I graduated from high school in February. So that's why I went to prep school.
Got it. So you went from Temple Prep to Villanova?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Played for Coach Kraft?
Yeah. Tremendous, tremendous coach. He allowed us to create a lot. Matter of fact, with Hubie White and George Lefwich, Jim McMonagle, some of the great players that were there. I think of George Lefwich playing with John Thompson and Tom Hoover at Archbishop Carroll. I thought George Lefwich was one of the best high school guards I had ever seen. And we were fortunate enough to play together. During those times, we had a freshman. We won the freshman All Big Five championship with George Lefwich and I, averaged about 21 and 22 points our freshman year. So that's when those days when they didn't allow freshmen to play.
Wow. Yeah, that with the rule change. I remember even like Pete Maravich and all the like yourself, all the great players, they had to wait to play, right? You couldn't play
That's right.
freshman. Yeah. That's great. So let's like take me back from the beginning, like growing up in West Philadelphia, Overbrook. Like what was like your childhood like? What made you get into basketball?
Well, to talk about my family, my father just passed away 3 months ago. He was 107.
I saw that Pop
So
Jones.
yeah, my pop went to Overbrook High School. But see, I had a brother, Bob Jones, that won championship at Overbrook before I went there. So when I grew up, we were baseball players. My father barnstormed with the Negro baseball leagues, and even though being a family of 8, he said he could have played events ago, but had too many kids. So the other one that got me playing, coming from baseball, I was a baseball player at 11, 12 years old, and then I got into basketball. And of course, my neighborhood recreation center, Haddington at 57th Haverford, there were some great players I would see all the time there. Guy Rogers, Hal Lear, Tom Gola, Wilt Chamberlain, Woody Salisbury. I had so many, should I say, role models that were in my community growing up. So growing up in West Philly, go to the rec center, and you would see some of the greatest ball players ever to play, not only from Philadelphia, but also from New York.
Wow. Now, yeah, I'm sorry for your loss with Pop, but he seemed to live a great life. 107 years old.
Oh, he lived a wonderful life, even to his last. We were there on his birthday, and a couple months later, he said I was tired, and he said I'm ready to meet my maker. So we realized we were prepared. He had been independent. People don't realize that he lived in his own apartment at 55th and Arch, and they had people to come in to clean and cook, but he was independent. So he always got up and walked around. He had a garden in the back of the Salvation Army home there. where there was maybe about 60 or some residents, but mostly women, because as we realized, they were outliving the men in the neighborhood. But I'd go by there and we'd have a ball. We take him out to some of our clinics that we did around the city with Shufasar's Institute. We take him there when he was 100 because we wanted kids to talk to someone that reached that level and had come from right from the neighborhood. And he was a 33rd degree Mason and quite community oriented. A lot of people knew Pop Jones.
That's great. Now, with living the life that he lived and such a long life, did he ever pass on any messages or any lessons like to live a good long life?
Well, you just said it there. Danny, he said life is to be lived. And I'm going to give you a term. His name was Ernest Jones, but his was Ernest Jones, one of the infinite humanitarians. He treated everybody, well, he taught us one big thing, the golden rule. Do unto others, you would have them do unto you. My grandmother was community oriented. My aunts in the community were community oriented. And that's where my background came in reaching back to my community was because of him and relatives in the Jones family.
That's great. And I saw they put the mural up of you in West Philly at the playground. That's all.
Yeah, I was really excited about that, Danny. They called me up and Coach Hamilton, we went down. We worked with Mantua for years. We've been doing basketball clinics, silence of violence clinics, working with gangs since 1969. So when they came to me and asked me about a mural, I said, well, what? I don't need a mural. You know, there's so many people that work with me with youth all my life. A mural of me wouldn't be appropriate. But they said they wanted the mural to recognize what concerned athletes, Shufasar's Institute had been doing since 69. But I told them if you could raise money for Mantua with the mural, then we would get an opportunity to do training back in West Philly. I grew up in that neighborhood also. Even I was up at 52nd Street, the murals at 37th and Mount Vernon, that was still part of my neighborhood going down to play basketball in Philadelphia. So I was really honored that my two sisters who were there, retired teachers from West Philly High, and my other sister that taught at Lambert Elementary. My brother flew in from Denver with his family, played for Denver University, and was a city publicly in city championship at our rival school, West Philly. He won a champion at West Philly, Bill Jones. So he became the dean of students at George Washington High in Denver, where Chauncey Billups went. So I was honored to have my family there, hundreds of friends, hundreds of male and female greats that were part of the concerned athletes and Shufasar's Institute. So many of the people that helped out over the years were there at that event. But I had my father to speak, and he talked about something very important about reaching back to help the most important natural resource, our youth. So I was really honored that day, Danny.
That's great. That's great. And even before we get into, and I saw the Miami Heat, all your work with the Miami Heat and all your work with all the kids and giving back. Let's start with like Big Five, two-time Big Five Player of the Year. Talk about your college experience a little bit, like playing with Coach Kraft, and you two times. So your junior and senior year, you were the Big Five Player of the Year, right?
That was a great honor.
Yeah.
You know, I know about all the legends that played in the Big Five, all the great players from Philadelphia, and to be recognized. And I got to say this first, thanks to George Raveling, who actually recruited me to Villanova, because I had offers from Temple, St. Joe, Kent State. I had a lot of offers around the country, but I wanted to stay home, but I wanted to be off campus. And going to prep school, Temple Prep, I was right there at Temple University, but I didn't want to be in the city. I wanted the opportunity to be on a campus. So playing at Villanova University was quite an honor. People don't realize that you had to wear a coat and tie to class, coat and tie to eat. It was all male when I went to school. And there's some of the great African-American ball players. There were only 20 of us at Villanova at that time. Billy Joe played for Denver, the Denver Broncos. We had Frank Budd, the world's fastest human, Odie Drayton. We had a lot of great track and field players and a lot of great athletes that were there, and also Larry Livers, Don Webster. Some of these names people wouldn't know, but they were some of the great track people in the Philadelphia area. So
wow.
being on a campus was nice, Danny. It was nice to be out on a campus.
And what did you study, Mr. Jones?
Well, first, I'm going to give people a chance to understand. I didn't understand what I really wanted. So I took accounting, and I found out that wasn't my main thing. I wasn't good with numbers. So I changed my major to marketing. And that's what benefited me about learning about economics and business.
Oh, wow.
And that's what helped me out in the business that I'm into now with our Shooter Stars Institute, Training Institute, nonprofit, that I'm there with Coach Ken Hamilton, my best friend, the winningest coach in public league history. He also had 4 championships to Ben Franklin. But I played against Ken Hamilton when he went to Germantown, and we were fortunate enough at Overbrook to beat Germantown twice for public league playoffs, and then we won the city championship against West Catholic and Bishop Newman.
Oh, wow. Back in the day when it was Bishop Newman, not Newman Goretti. Wow.
Yeah, you remember? Hey, Danny, you remember that, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's back in the
know the
day.
history. Yeah. So
Yeah,
now
Bill Mulkey. Yeah.
coming out of college, 2-time Big Five MVP, you were drafted in the 3rd round. Talk about like your rookie year and your rookie year with the Bullets and how you went from being a 3rd round pick to working your way into the lineup to ultimately being first team all rookie.
Well, I want to explain something to people. Coming out of college, Walt Hazzard and I wrote in our yearbook we would make the Olympics together. And through the Olympic trials, I played with guys like Rick Barry, and we actually thought we made the team. I'm going to be quite frank with you. I thought I'd be on that Olympic team with Walt Hazzard and Bill Bradley, Jeff Mullins, Luke Jackson. I mean, some of the great players in college at the time. And as I said before, they had the Army, they had the all-black college teams. When you tried to put Olympics back then, there were ball players from all over the country playing for different areas. The 3 All-American team members were on those trying out for the Olympic trials. And when we ended up in Jamaica, New York, we actually thought, well, when I came down and saw the list, Rick Barry and I just said we thought we had done enough to make the team. But that was the first motivation for me going to the Baltimore Bullets. Well, I should say going to the first African-American that played in the NBA name is Earl Lloyd. He was a scout for the Detroit Pistons. He was the one that drafted me to the Detroit Pistons, and I was traded with Terry Dissinger and some other ball players, and I went to Baltimore Bullets. And that's where I actually had a chance to play with some of the greatest players ever, Walt Bellamy. Speaking of centers, I played with Walt Bellamy, Wilt, Bob Lanier, Kareem, Moses Malone, Darryl Dawkins. So when I named, they're the top centers in the history of the game. I was fortunate to play with Walt Bellamy, and I played with Bailey Howell. Now, a lot of people won't know this name, but Cy Hugo Green was a mentor for me. He played with the old Rochester Royals. He was an old timer on our team, but he was a mentor to me. And he was telling me that I could take the starting position job because at the time it was Kevin Loggery and Don Old. And he felt that that I could make the starting team, which I did, and eventually became the NBA All-Rookie team with the Baltimore Bullets. So then I was traded. I was traded for John Kerr to the 76ers, and that was a break for me because it gave me an opportunity to play at home. And that one of the greatest experiences I could have playing on, which was named the NBA's greatest team for the first 35 years. We were 68-13, and we finally beat the Boston Celtics, who won 8 championships in a row. So every team in the league called us up and said, hey, thank you for breaking that dynasty. And we also wanted it for Wilt, because they would always say that Wilt was a loser. And he was never a loser. He just never had a supporting cast. Basketball is a team sport. And he finally had guys like Luke Jackson, Chet Walker, All-American, Hall of Fame, Billy Cunningham, Hall of Fame, Al Greer, one of the greatest 2 guards ever, Hall of Fame. So Wilt Chamberlain. So I played with 4 Hall of Famers. And I also played with Philly guys, Matt Gugas, St. Joe, Melchione, my teammate at Villanova. So it had a home flavor with Wilt. You're talking about Matt Gugas, Melchione, that's home. So that was a great experience to win that championship.
And now, so you're a couple years younger than Wilt, right? Because he also went to Overbrook, right?
Yeah, he played before I did, and even after he won championships at Overbrook, my brother Bob won championships there. My brother Bob was the MVP of the city championship when they beat. I'm not sure whether that was Father Judge or not, but I know that he was an MVP. So during those times, a lot of the African American ball players did not get an opportunity to play in the Big Five. So before me, you had guys like John Chaney, Bethune-Cookman. My brother Bob went to A&T, North Carolina A&T. So a lot of Philadelphia ball players that went to historical Black colleges. Because during those times, they only had 1 or 2 African Americans in the Big Five. They didn't have that many when I got out of school in the 60s. There weren't that many on many teams.
Yeah, Earl the Pearl, Winston-Salem, another Philly legend.
Yeah. Oh man, you can name so many guys that went down south. Ty Britt, who was elected to the Black Hall of Fame. Freddie Carter he went to Mount St. Mary's, but he's a Ben Franklin graduate. But there's so many of those legends that I went to, that I played industrial ball in many leagues around the city. A lot of those guys went to African American historical Black colleges.
Got it. Yeah, Gratz, and then or the Pearl went to Gratz, and then Winston-Salem. There's a lot of legends. Now talk about Wilt a little bit. What was your relationship like with Wilt? Any good stories?
Well, the best story is this. When we were in high school, now you have to realize this. When you're playing at Overbrook High School, there's tradition. We realized what it meant to represent West Philly, to represent Overbrook. That's where community centers come in Haddington, but that's where the home of Wilt was. Because all of us that played ball in West Philly, most was at Haddington. Of course, they were John Chaney and those played at South Philly, Marion Anderson. You got Hank Gatherson in North Philly with some of the great North Philadelphia ball players. But Wilt Chamberlain would come to our games with Johnny Samples, former Jet world champion with Joe Namath, 3-time All-American in Maryland Eastern Shore. I also played on the same Baker League team. But playing with Wilt was this. When we were in high school, he would come to our games and tell us, keep your grades up. He was a Renaissance man, very intelligent. People don't realize that his intelligence when he went to Kansas, what he went through going to Kansas, because they didn't have that many African Americans going to schools in the Midwest like Kansas. So he was sort of a pioneer in that state. He had a jazz show there. He was an excellent student. But he would tell us, be a scholar athlete, because then you get an opportunity to get a scholarship. Keep your grades up. He would come to our games. And then you go to Haddington or Moreland around the city and watch them play against the best out of New York. We always had role models in our community, the Tom Golas, the Pickles Kennedy. I'll name some guys that a lot of people wouldn't even remember that were really outstanding. Al Giuliani, old-time guys that were in our community. And see, that's how close we were. I'll give you some names at West Catholic. We beat West Catholic, but I grew up with Jimmy Lynam, Herb McGee, Jim Boyle. Jim Boyle's father coached me in the Industrial League. Uh, Matter of fact, I just went to the award ceremony, Porch of America, and they had the one of the all-time greats from St. Joe that also was honored that night. Fran Dunby was there, but the gentleman that coaches St. Joe is slipping my name. I was just at the affair with him
Martelli?
last month.
Martelli?
Yes, Martelli. I took a picture with him. Dom DiGiulio, Fran Dunby, Martelli, and his wife. I didn't know his wife played for Immaculata. We had a wonderful time there, and I'm mentioning this for our listeners to understand that during those times, a lot of us high school ball players played industrial ball, but we also played. When I got out of college, the Baker League was our playground. I mean, Billy Cunningham played with my brother in the West Philly team. You had Hal Greer played with a team with Chet. You had Earl and Archie on other teams. In other words, the great talent in Philadelphia and ball players that were pros played on different teams. Matter of fact, people didn't know that Bill Bradley played on my Baker League team. Come from New York when he came out of college at Princeton. He played in the Rucker and the Charles Baker League. So the history of basketball in Philadelphia, when you talk about Sonny Hills, the T. Parhams, I'm talking about Alonzo Lewis's, Claude Gross. You're talking about some great ball players. But I look at Philadelphia again. We never had the opportunity to play in the state championship. And when you look at the talent in the public and Catholic schools, when I grew up, you're talking about some talent. I mean, some great players. Frank Carese, Kurt Frummel. I could name a lot of ball players that people wouldn't recognize just offhand. A lot of them didn't play pro ball afterwards, but it was great talent in high school and college.
Wow. Now it's similar to like the New York scene with the Rucker, with the Baker League. Now I got a good question for you. If you can put together your starting lineup of all time, Philadelphia guys only, who would you put? And put yourself as the point. So you got to pick your two, your three, and your two bigs. Who would you pick?
Well, I'm going to tell you, if you're talking about Philadelphia, because
Philadelphia.
I remember I'm going to give you an example. When I was in high school, we had Walt Hazzard, we had Hubie White, Tom Hoover. We went to New York. We played against Connie Hawkins,
Hulk.
Roger Brown, Neil Johnson. I'm talking about school. I could give you when I went up there in college, played against them, or pros. But when you talk about Philadelphia ball or the NBA, Wilt Chamberlain, I'm going to give you this name again, the greatest individual basketball player ever, Wilt Chamberlain. So when you look at talent, when they say about Michael Jordan with 6 championships, LeBron, I'm talking about individual. Because in my book, Black Champions Challenge American Sports, I voted for Bill Russell as, of course, he was the winningest 11 championships. Now, could never add up to what Wilt did in statistics. Every statistical record is Wilt Chamberlain. But in my book, I said Bill Russell, and people don't know about basketball, don't understand what Bill Russell did for not only University of San Francisco, Olympics, but I'm going to give you another name, K.C. Jones.
Celtics.
He was on all those championship teams, but he doesn't get the credit because they don't know basketball. You have to have a guard that can play, to take the head of the snake of the opposing guard. He's one of the best defenders ever in basketball. Sam Jones and I became very close friends with the podcast I have. I have Sports Inside and Out with Coach Chuck Hatcher. Sam Jones, before he passed away, he was a co-host with me. And he would tell me, with that team, the Boston Celtics, the key to their team, people don't realize K.C. Jones was the key. Even though they had Havlicek. I mean, they had some great players, Sanders, great Boston Celtic players, Heinsohn and all of them. But Sam Jones said the key to our play was to have the quarterback on offense and defense. That's K.C. Jones. But when you talk about Wilt Chamberlain, I could name some guys here. When you talk about the best out of Philly, do you know what Tom Gola did? People don't know
LaSalle.
who Tom Gola was.
Tom Goal out of
They don't
LaSalle.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't, but they don't know how great he was. I mean, people don't read enough and they don't know the history because the other guys that I could put on the team before me, Oscar Robertson said it. Guy Rogers, one of the greatest passers in the history of basketball. Now, see that name again. See, when I say you told me to name some ball players that were great, wow. People don't know how great John Chaney could play. People don't know how good he was. He was my hygiene teacher at Overbrook High School.
I read that.
He would
Teacher.
take Walt Hazard and I in the gym and beat us up. Both of us. We play against John Chaney. I'm talking about John Chaney.
Yeah, Temple.
People don't know how good he. Yeah, I mean a great basketball player, but he never got a chance to play in the NBA because even during that time there were restrictions. Most of those ball players, like Hal Lear, one of the greatest shooters ever from Temple, from Overbrook, they were the Eastern Leaguers. But I mean, there were other ball players I could name. But out of Philly, there's so many great ball players. Somebody asked me that before. Look at Earl Monroe.
Yep.
I mean, great. I'm talking about great. When I'm talking about his reputation, people don't know he went to Bartram High. He was an all-public soccer player. People did not know that. Earl Monroe, all-public soccer player. He also went to Temple Prep. And then he was working somewhere in big games. Said, come on down here. He went down there with some great players from Philadelphia, Teddy Blunt, who went to Gratz. I mean, some great players that also were great when I came out of high school. They couldn't go to the big five schools. A lot of them went to historical black colleges. So I could go on and name. It's hard to really, when you say from Philly, wow, there's some great players out of Philly. But when you say Earl or Walt Hazard, people don't know Walt Hazard was the first 30-0 for UCLA.
Yeah.
They won we lost to Duke in the regionals, and Hazard said, we'll get them. Gail Goodrich, Eric Erickson, Fred Slaughter. I was trying to name Jack Hirsch. I was trying to name his starting five for UCLA when they were 30-0. And they got back and they beat Duke for the NCAA championship. But Hazard also led the Olympic team to the Olympic gold. So there are a lot of ball players that there's so many great ones out of Philly. I just went to the Black Hall of Fame and Al John was there, Fred Carter, Mike Banham. I don't know if people know who Mike Banham was, but a great player from St. Joe and a great NBA player, great ambassador. But it's hard to name, Danny, to say I could name 20 or 30 different of the greatest players out of Philly. And a lot of people wouldn't really know how good some of them were because they never got an opportunity to see those guys play pro ball. I'm talking about these are guys that were good enough to play ball, but went to the Eastern League.
Yeah. Now if you're putting a Philly team together and you're going up against the Rucker guys at New York, you're going up against all these other areas, put yourself at the one, and then who would you put as your two guard, your three, your four, and your five if you had to nail it down to your top five? But you're the one.
Well, see, if you're talking about, we did play against the Rugger and the Baker League. I mean, the Baker League played against that.
Yeah.
And our all-star team was Al Greer, myself was on that team, Ray Scott, Luke Jackson. I'm talking about when we played against the Ruggers. But if you really picked a team of Ruggers, there were times that Wilt played for New York. When New York played against Philly, sometimes Wilt would play for the New York team.
Oh, wow.
But he picked a team out of the Baker League team. Wow. There's a lot of great, because Billy Cunningham played, as I said, the Baker, Chet Walker. These guys were in the Baker League that I played against in the Baker League. So if I selected the top players, it would probably be my teammates from the 76ers. With this Baker League players, Billy, Chet, Hal. There were guys like Chink that I played with, Ray Scott, with the Baker League. But there were some other great. But one time I have a picture of all these of our all-star team to play against the Baker. And I remember how Cliff Anderson, I remember George Lehman, Ray Scott, Luke Jackson. I'm trying to think who were the other forwards on that team. But I have a picture of the all-star team coached by Vince Miller that with an all-star team from the Baker League.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, you could get Archie Clark. We had Earl Monroe on one team that won the Baker League one summer. The last year I played in the Baker League, I played with the 76ers team. That was World B. Free, Mel Bennett, Joe Bryant, Mike Dunleavy. That's right, Kobe's dad. I played on that. That was the last time I played in the Baker League, and we won the Baker League championship. I was on that team, and that was my last year with the Sixers. I was about 30, 34 years old at the time. Wow. That was my last year playing in the Baker League. Yeah.
Now, how would you, from your perspective, you would have the best perspective on this. One of the debates is always Russell or Wilt. Now, how do you see it? How would you compare the two overall?
Well, again, as I said in my book, you couldn't compare. Like Wilt would say it. I'm gonna give you basketball knowledge. Bill Russell played with maybe 8 Hall of Famers. He had a supporting cast. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points and 20-some rebounds out in Frisco. He didn't have a supporting cast. When you compare two individuals, basketball is a team sport. So it's hard for me to compare. I could say that he was better than Russell, but Russell was the best. That's why in my book, I voted Russell as the winning, because he won the most. But he had all those Hall of Famers. And I could name, Cousy, Sharman, Heinsohn, Havlicek, Ramsey, Sam Jones. I mean, I could name a plethora of great NBA players that Russell had in his supporting cast. And they had a thing. I'm going to give you something pretty interesting. When I was at Villanova, I asked Jack Kraft, could we wear black Converses? And when I say Jack Kraft was very creative in our game plan. He allowed Hubie White, George Left, and I create our own plays that were the name of our girlfriends. We would call plays, but we had different styles of dropping the ball off in front. There were ways that you could play basketball without having a play called that you could set up either ball player with those plays, but he allowed us to wear black Converses. Now, to show you how much I really enjoyed watching the Boston Celtics play. I love the way they played. I'm from Philadelphia. Of course, I'm rooting for Philly. But when you look at a team like the way they played, I'll give an example. We were the first time in history that they had 10 African Americans on the court is when we played against the Boston Celtics. See, the pioneers during those times, as I said, Earl Lloyd, first African American. Most teams during those 40s and 50s maybe had 1 or 2 African Americans. Of course, the game has changed. Now you have more Europeans or foreigners winning the MVP. So the game has changed so much that different players from around the world are the MVPs, or most outstanding, because the game has transitioned worldly. But during our time, very physical, Danny. I mean, we could have hands on. You got beat up in our sport when we played, but now it's a little more hands off. And to be truthful, when I was 33, Richie Phillips said, "You want to play anymore?" I was retired working in Norfolk, Virginia. I lived in Virginia Beach. I was 33. He said, "You want to play anymore?" He said, "The Utah Stars would like you to come out an exhibition game." I was 33. I went out to Utah, and they wanted me to go there because they had a high school ball player that they knew that I worked with some of the greatest centers ever. I played with Mose Malone in Utah Stars. I played with Ron Boone, Roger Brown, great players that played in the ABA. The game today is what I saw in 1975
Wow.
because they had the 3-point shot. George McGinnis, Dr. J. I could name some great ball players, Marvelous Marvin Barnes. I mean, great players that played in the ABA because they were shooting threes. They're running up exactly what they're doing now is what they did in 75.
Wow. Now,
But
how would you compare the game like at the time, the Kentucky Colonels, you got Dan Issel, you got
oh,
Johnny
Artist Gilmore,
Billy Graham,
Dampier,
Larry Cannon from Lincoln.
yeah,
Nuggets.
Larry Cannon. I'm gonna tell you what, the Kentucky Colonels, because the coach of that team, I think it was them. I know he played with Larry Costello at Niagara. I'm trying to think his name. He coached the championship team there. And I watched who they had. They had a guy named Bird Everett, a little guard. They had Louis Dampier. They had one of the Jones boys. Do you know that 7 Jones boys from Albany State played in the NBA?
Wow.
Wilbur Jones, Cardwell Jones, Major Jones, Charles Jones. All those Jones boys went to Albany State. And it's a family of 5 or 6. I played against Wilbur. He played with Colonels when they won the championship. That was the year I came in. I only played 1 year there. It was a wonderful experience to play a game wide open, 3-point shot, the red, white, and blue ball. Tremendous.
I love they wrote a really good book on the ABA if you ever read it. It's called Loose Balls by Terry Pluto. I read
No,
that
I
one.
didn't.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
goes
well, it goes where?
I was gonna say it goes all into like the craziness and the like the pop culture and like the culture of
Oh,
the
yeah.
that was all in that in the ABA. Whereas the NBA was
Okay.
kind of drying up a little bit supposedly in this book, you know.
Yeah. But I tell you, 4 years ago, I worked for Sports Inside and Out. Coach Hatcher and I put on the reunion for the Dream Maker. That's Earl Foreman. Earl Foreman was the part owner of the Baltimore Bullets when I played for the Bullets, and then he owned the Virginia Squires. We brought back the Virginia Squires 5 years ago. Akins, Dave Twardzik, Barry Parkhill, Fatty Taylor, Dr. J, George Gervin, Charlie Scott. We actually brought Ray Scott. We brought all of the Virginia Squires back to Virginia Beach 4 years ago. And this last year, thanks for the memories, we brought Dr. J, Gervin, Charlie Scott, Akins, Schwarzik. We brought them back to Portsmouth. Thanks for the memories. They had me come speak at a high school there in Portsmouth, and we celebrated the Virginia Squires. And I bring that up because I lived in Virginia Beach when I played for the Utah Stars. I actually come back to play in my hometown. My family was still there. They didn't go to Utah with me. I went to Utah and stayed in a hotel with George Govan and Mose Malone because we went to Utah. So I didn't bring my family. I was lived in Virginia Beach. So I'd come back to play the Virginia Squires at Scope Center in Norfolk, Virginia. So I had that great experience with having the opportunity to play in the ABA and NBA. Wonderful experience.
That's great. That's knowledge. Now, how would you compare the centers and the bigs that you played with? Like talking about Kareem versus Wilt or like any of those you play with probably the top 5, like you said, centers maybe of all time.
Yeah, I mean, there were different type players. And you're saying Wilt because he's unstoppable. But look at Kareem, a shot, they were unstoppable. You're talking about great. They're great. You're talking about the greatest centers ever. I'm going to give you Walt Bellamy. People don't know how great Walt Bellamy was. And NBA All Rookie team, gold medal winner, Indiana University All American. great basketball player. Bob Lanier. Then you have Darryl Dawkins. You have Mo Malone. Of course, you can't exclude a guy that fo when they won the championship. I was so proud of that team because Billy and Matt Gukic coached that team, and they played some Maurice Cheek. I mean, great Andrew Toney. I mean, great players. I mean, excellent team. But again, about comparing centers, they're different types. The domination of Wilt, Kareem's finesse, Bob Lanier, Moses Power. They're all different types of players, but they're all great in their own perspective. Because it's hard for me to say. I know one thing: any records in the books will hold for the rest of for as long as I'm alive. Because I don't think anybody will ever break his records.
No.
I'm talking about 50 points and 24 rebounds. You get 10 rebounds, they screaming. And he averaged 25. So, it's just and I don't like to compare who's the greatest, like Michael and LeBron. We're all different eras. It's different type of game, different eras. So it's hard to say somebody who's the greatest. Now, you talk about Michael, of course, what he did for the game, his idea of 6 championships, MVPs, all defense and offense. So that's one of the greatest players. And the same thing I would say about LeBron, KD, Steph Curry. I mean, these guys are some different game now. People got to understand it's an altogether different game than when we played.
For sure. Now, I got a good question for you. So there's always a lot of conspiracy around Wilt's 100-point game because there was no video footage and no one had any cameras or anything like that. Did you witness that game? I know it was before you were on the Sixers. You were probably in high school or college. But did you hear
I
that?
was in high school.
Yeah.
But see, I already know Guy Rogers and Al Adams. I know they were on that team when he scored 100. But see, I give you some. I was on the team when he scored 60 or 70. So it's not a myth. And if people ask me, did he really score? Of course he scored 100 points. They have the box score. I mean, do you know he went back to New York with the guys from New York? People don't know that he lived in New York. If it wasn't for Alex Hannum, when I played for the Sixers, when I got traded to the Sixers from the Baltimore Bullets, he lived in New York. He would drive home from games. He didn't have a place in Philly. Wow. Alex Hannum said, no, you're not going to go leave here and drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to New York. You're going to get in apartments here. And he changed the culture of how Wilt was received. He wasn't no prima donna. Alex Hannum treated everybody the same. And that's why our team was so powerful, because we were a close family and everybody was equal. He didn't care. Again, big man Sarge, he won that championship with the Oakland team. He was just the type of guy that didn't take no nonsense. You're all accountable. So when you talk about great teams, or you're talking about a guys that Johnny Green was on that team where he scored 100, there were guys on that team that I know that I played with later. I played with Johnny Green, the Sixers later, but he was on that team when he scored 100 points. Wow. But I mean, they have the box score. I have a statue of him holding up that paper that said 100.
That's awesome.
I have a statue, small statue. Great. Yeah.
There's always conspiracy around that, but I want to hear from you what the truth was.
Yeah, it's in the record books. That's why people ask me that. I did a Zoom with Rowan College. I did a thing about Sherman Antitrust, Kurt Flood, and I actually had a Zoom to do a college class with Professor Britt. Mr. Reuben Britt asked me to speak to his class. And 2 years ago, I did another thing with him. But they said the same thing. Did he really? I said, wait a minute. Their records show that he did it. They have how many assists, how many fouls. There's a record of it. So it's the truth. It was in Hershey because they didn't have any televised game out there. But they do have the record books. the box score, the box score.
Now out of all the hoops, what was your greatest memory? Was it game one of the finals? Was it a time in Villanova? What was your greatest memory out of all of it?
Well, I have memories that go back to high school.
Yeah.
Winning I have a high school championship against Germantown, against the city championship. I have great memories with Villanova. I mean, some great years. We were rated number 5 in the country my senior year, 25-5. If George Lefferts hadn't had a car accident and broke his leg, he would have been a better version of himself. But we were 25-5 in my last year. But I have great memories in high school. But probably the greatest memory, making the NBR rookie team, scoring. I'll give you some names: Steph Curry, Dennis Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Chauncey Billups, Jamal Murray. We are the only guards to average 20 points in a championship series. I think I sent you that list.
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
sent you that list because Kyrie Irving, I'm proud of that, even though I'm not a scorer. I was a playmaker, defense. You know, I averaged about 13 points a game. My whole career, I only averaged about 10 points.
Wow.
But when you come up and they have my name in the asterisk by it, that I averaged 13 points, but I'm one of the top guards in the history of the NBA to average 20 points a game in the finals. That's what I'm proud of, because I had games. I had 27 points to beat the Golden State Warriors. One game I had 30, 10 rebounds, and 8. I don't remember those type of things, but I do remember scoring 27, being the leading scorer on the championship team. The last game we beat, Rick Barry, Nate Thurman, Tom Sherry. I remember that. So they're great memories for me. But being a part of the championship and being named to the NBA's greatest team for the first 35 years is something I always cherish.
In the official list, I have it right here. Point guards that average 20 plus points NBA Finals to win it in the history of the NBA is Dennis Johnson, Steph Curry, Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, Tony Parker, Jerry West, the Big O, Chauncey, Magic, and yourself. That's an amazing list.
Yeah, now I forgot. Yeah, thank you for having that, because I forgot, man, Kyrie Irving. There was another name. Oh, Tony Parker.
Yep, Tony
Hey,
Parker.
Tony Parker, great. Now, the reason why I'm saying it is because when I was in college, they tried to make me 6'2", but I'm only 6', 6'1", maybe. So when you talk about the toughest guys I had to play, Danny, weren't Oscar and Jerry. The toughest guys I had to play against were, I'm going to give you the guard, Tiny Archibald. I'm going to give you another guard, Calvin Murphy. I did not mind playing Earl, Dave Bing, Oscar, but those guys were faster than me.
Yeah.
So they were really hard to play. I mean, these guys were phenomenal. I'm talking about 6 foot. I mean, the same size as me. So when you playing against a guy that's about the same size as you, that's that fast, I even give you a guy in the ABA, Matt Calvin. And I keep telling you this guy, Bird Everett. People don't even remember who that was, and I hated playing. What's the guy with George Gervin? There was a guy that played with George Gervin with the Spurs. I hated playing him. I can't think his name. But he was one of the great guards also, top player in the ABA that I hated to play. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's some names. Tiny and then Calvin on the Rockets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you guys as fast as could be. Yeah.
Wow. Now out of all the levels, so you got Overbrook, Villanova, NBA. At what point did you enjoy playing the most? Was it in high school with your friends? Was it all the accomplishments at Nova, winning the finals for the Sixers?
Well, I think all of them have a big place in my heart. because that's your maturation
Yeah.
from high school to college. And, because my brother, when they won the championship at Overbrook, and he went down to Northern A&T, I was 15 when I went to see them play. There's a guy named Joe Howe that's from Philadelphia. Vince Miller from Philadelphia played on that team. Herb Gray from D.C., Holeslaw. I named these guys because when I went at 15, I had never seen ball players run and play like they played. See, the best players around the country were not at Memphis, West Virginia, at the Southern schools, North Carolina, Duke. They didn't have African American players. So when I'm at 15 and I go to Greensboro and I see them play, I had never seen guys run and play like that. But see, that's what was in Philly, South Philadelphia, North Philly, West Philly, Germantown. You had guys playing ball all over Philadelphia that was my proving ground, is playing in those rec centers, industrial leagues, Charles Baker League, so many leagues you played in. And then the experience to see how they play basketball down south, it was amazing. It was amazing basketball. Quite a education for me also, because that was 1957 where my mother didn't want to eat in the back of a kitchen. My mother didn't want me to go to movie because you had to sit in the balcony. My mother was very disturbed at the fountains, white and black fountains, but also my brother was part of Greensboro, the sit-ins. That was the year when all the sit-ins were. So as a kid, 15, going down south was pretty scary. I'm being quite truthful about this because we heard so much about Emmett Till and about the lynchings. Now, in my book, Black Champion Challenge American Sports, I talk about 1800, the great athletes, jockeys, fencers, boxers, baseball, football, that never got recognition. But before each chapter, it's unfortunate. That's why the book was took off. When Jim Marsh and I completed this book, I was traded to Milwaukee. They didn't want to put it or advertise it at the game because it was too controversial about the lynchings. And that's what's happening today. Even down here, they want to take away it's called a woke. They're trying to take away the history of what happened in the past. And that's happening here, where I live in Florida. They're trying to take away the history. So that's part of what's happening in our society, Danny. We know in Philly, one of the things I learned, it was when you talking about growing up, I mean, it was friends. I'm talking about Jimmy Lynam, Herb McGee, Boyle. We were all played against each other, so we could go in all neighborhoods. We could go everywhere and play ball because we had a passport. And that's what Philly was to me, city of brotherly love. I don't like the new thing, you got a friend. It's more personable. When you talk about the city of brotherly love, that's what Philly is to me.
For sure. The name of the podcast, too, is City of Brotherly Gloves. And the reason
Come on, man. I didn't know that.
The reason
See,
it's called that is because it's really, I'm a basketball player. I played in high school. I played a little bit in college, but
Where you playing?
I played at a Division III school for a year, but I played high school ball at Germantown Academy, and
I know where that is. Yeah.
I played there for a year, and then I played at Faith Christian, which is in the suburbs.
Okay.
But
I know that, but I know about Germantown Academy.
yeah, I was an okay high school player. I was a like a first team all league player. I'm no Wali Jones, but I had a good little career. But I got
good, yeah.
Yeah. But I got
That was all what now? What position?
I played the 1 and the 2. I'm about 6 foot, 6'1". And
well, you like me, man. Come on.
Yeah, a little bit, not quite, nowhere near you, but yeah, I played my whole life up until I was, probably 19, and yeah, good high school career. I was an all-city player in eighth grade.
All city. Yeah. Congratulations, man. That's something to speak about, Danny, because when you're talking ball, you talk to people that played it. So
Yeah.
you had a chance to play at that level. Shoot.
Yeah, my ninth grade. Yeah, so in eighth grade, I was an all-city player. My ninth grade year, I played for Rip Hamilton's Rip City. We were,
Yeah.
yeah, we were sponsored by Jordan Brand, and I was the
Come
two guard
on,
on that
man.
team. Yeah,
Oh, that must have been a great experience.
it was awesome. I was coached by John Allen, who was the coach, or he played for Seton Hall. If you're familiar with him, but
No, I'm not. Yeah.
at GA, I trained with like Alvin Williams, John Haynes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course.
They were all
Yeah, I
legends.
know
Yeah,
all those guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a
Now,
good career.
what college?
The school I went to was called Cairn. It was a, small Division III school, and I played like the preseason there, and I ended up just with it being D3. And at the time, I was just not taking it real seriously, and I just decided not to play. But I had some pretty good looks like
Yeah.
my ninth and 10th grade year. But after I transferred, a lot of that kind of died down. I think
Uh,
being at Germantown, I had a good base because of the reputation of that school. But
right.
once I transferred, I averaged a lot of points and everything, and I did well at Faith Christian, but it didn't have the recruiting that Germantown Academy has, you know?
I got you. I got you. Now,
But
and I like what you said, Danny. You says out the one and two. When I ask students that are guards, what do you play? I said, you got to be able to play both of them. You can't just be, you're a guard. In other words, when we grew up, we played guard.
yeah,
But all my career, I was known as a one. And I'll be quite frank, because I wasn't the guy to be out there a two to score. But Jack Kraft used to tell me, if you don't shoot, I'm going to take you out. But see, I always had so many good players at Overbrook.
yeah,
So if I averaged 15, I had the other guys averaging 10, all other four other players. So I didn't have to do a 20 or like Hazard. Hazard was not only a great one and two in high school, he could score. I mean, he could do both. But my thing was defense and playmaking. And that's what I hung my hat on when I went to the Baltimore Bullets, because Kevin Logry, well, he was a shooter. He didn't play as much defense. And that's how Cy Hugo Green, who played for Duquesne and Rochester Royal, he said you could take his job. Well, he was old, so he wasn't getting any time at all, because his career was over. He said, Wally, you can make it in pro ball. Get the ball to Gus Johnson, Billy Howell. Gus Johnson, Billy Howell helped me so much being a pro, how forwards can set picks and know how to roll and get the ball to them and get it to Walt Bellamy. And that's what helped me out. I had some great mentors
even just
to help me out.
watching your game, it seemed like you had I noticed you were even making no look passes back in the 60s with no looks and then feet in the post. But then I think what your game is, you had for your time, like that, a unique jump shot where not a lot of people had that, where you could also spread the floor out and spread the defense out, giving Wilt and Greer and all that more looks. It seems like you had that all
Yeah, and
around game.
that's what Hannum told me. He said they're gonna double up on everybody. If you don't shoot, Wally, I gotta take you out. So it got me more confidence especially playing under him. Take it, take the shot. And if you're hot, keep shooting. I think that's the game itself. When somebody's hot, feed them. And they used to tell me, man, just go. If you can get by Sam or these ball players that couldn't stay with you because you're fast, he said, shoot it. And that's what helped us to beat the Celtics in their playoff series.
No, no, I got some names for you. So maybe some forgotten names of the past, just being a basketball historian. Tell me about, if you know about them, Earl Manigault, Pee Wee Kirkland, Joe
I know Pee Wee Kirkland. I'm going to give you a story about Pee Wee Kirkland. Pee Wee Kirkland, a friend of mine, was locked up in Lewisburg prison. Pee Wee Kirkland, Concerned Athletes in Action, my friend who got locked up, asked us to bring a team up to Lewisburg prison. Pee Wee Kirkland was there. Now, I'm going to tell you who was there as a guard. ML Carr. ML Carr said, I'd never seen two guys. Pee Wee Kirkland had 70 points. I had 55. There were 15-minute quarters because we had nowhere to go. So I took a team up there and we played against Pee Wee Kirkland in prison. Pee Wee Kirkland got out of prison. Bill Baggett, who's played in the Baker League with us in Denver, tried up for the Sixers, he from Gratz. We went to his party in New York. Pee Wee Kirkland played with Bobby Dandridge at Norfolk State. They had the best NAIA team in during that period of time when they were playing. So I know about Pee Wee Kirkland. I never saw Manigault, but I played against Pee Wee, and we became best of friends. He does a lot of youth programs in New York. Now the NBA rookie transition program, they brought Pee Wee Kirkland in to talk to kids, to talk to those rookies that were drafted. Now, I'll give you an example. When Iverson was a rookie, Earl Monroe and I had his youth group. When Kobe Bryant came in as a rookie, he wasn't in our group, but I was at the youth conference. They used to hire former NBA players to go to their week-long transition program for the NBA rookies. And when I talk about guys that some tremendous players, Pee Wee Kirkland spoke to those kids about, he took a rap for somebody in his family. I don't know the whole story, but he was in Lewisburg. He was in Lewisburg prison. But the NBA paid him to come talk to the students about not getting involved with drugs or whatever happened to him in New York. He took somebody's rap and he went to prison.
Wow.
But Pee Wee Kirkland was one of the greatest New York players, but he's also one of the guys that does so many youth programs in New York now, like Tiny, Bob McCullough, Tom Hoover. A lot of guys do a lot of youth programs in New York. And there's some outstanding people that's still doing programs with youth. Any other names you got?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, did Pee Wee ever get a shot in the NBA or no? He never got a shot.
I don't remember him getting a shot. I know they were still been drafted by Seattle, but he would have made pro ball.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, Earl Manigault, nothing on they called him the GOAT. They said he would have been the best.
Yeah, I never saw him before. I never saw him, but I saw some great ones up there. Pablo Robinson. There are a whole lot of old names. Tony Jackson from St. John's. I remember a lot of ball players from New York, because I'm speaking of guys like Roger Brown, Connie, who were household names in New York that were great players, high school and college and pro.
How about got a couple more ABA guys? Fly Williams, Johnny Newman.
I knew Fly Williams come down with a group of, he was on our championship team with the Sixers. I think that was, what year? That had to be close to 76, because I came back to the Sixers after I was hurt in Detroit. I played for Detroit Pistons, came back from the ABA, and Ray Scott signed me with Detroit Pistons when Kevin Porter and Crash Mengelt got hurt. But I got hurt the game that I came back for in Detroit. So I was sitting around, and the Sixers called me back to the Sixers in 1976 with Fred, Doug Collins, that team with Jordan McGinnis, Steve Mick. So I came back then, but you're talking about Fly Williams. He was fly. He could go. He was crazy. I mean, he played for the St. Louis Spirit.
Yep.
And see, Steve Jones, Barnes. There's a kid named Barnes that played for Providence, I believe. He wasn't the bad new Barnes that I played against, in the NBA. He was the Barnes that played for Providence. He's a young scorer. I forget was it Marvin? I'm not sure his name.
Marvin Barnes is Bad News Barnes, I think.
Yeah. The other guy, the young man, got in problems also. But Fly Williams could go. He would come down and bring his entourage to the Baker League when I played with the Sixers with him, and that's when I had a chance to play with him.
Wow. Now, this podcast, I do a lot of boxers. You ever any run-ins or meetings or friends with any of the boxers of the time, like Frazier or any of those guys?
Well, I knew Joe Frazier. I knew Kitten Hayward. I'm trying to think of the other guys that a lot of guys came to our games, but I can't think of all the guys. Meldrick or Taylor. There are a lot of guys that came to our games. I can't remember. Matter of fact, Muhammad Ali I knew very well because I did U programs in Virginia Beach with him, but he lived right not far off a city line, but he would come to our games. So I knew them that way, the guys coming in talking to you
Oh,
and
that's
afterwards.
Yeah, Philadelphia has a rich
Yeah.
history. I think the two top sports, just in my opinion, are basketball and boxing. It seems like they have the most
Yeah.
most history.
Yes.
How about some of the music icons of the time? You had Tammy Terrell, David Ruffin, any of those guys that you ever met or hung out with?
No, no, I never knew. Oh, there were a lot of guys that I would see. I didn't know him personally.
Yeah,
The musician, I can't even think he got a mural of him up somewhere. I can't even think of the guy's name, but he's the top musician, the horn player. Joe, what is his name? Well, I must be getting older, Danny. I can't remember so.
that's all right. Got
But he was a great,
one
yeah.
more ABA name for you. In my opinion, one of the best guards of all time, but it doesn't seem like he gets the recognition. That's Skywalker Thompson, David Thompson.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's one of the great ones. Oh yeah, oh yeah. One of the great ones. Our college and pro ball. I mean, just unfortunate when he got hurt, but outstanding player. One of the great players of our time.
For sure, for sure. Well, yeah. Talk a little bit about what you're doing now. Like you're helping kids, and you kind of after your career. I read one of your interviews. You dedicated your time to helping kids and helping the community. What are some of the programs now that you're doing that helps inspire kids and stuff that you're doing?
Okay. Well, as I said before, of course, when you talk about Bill, brother Knighton, okay, he's a brother. This cat is on it. He does a fantastic job with Pal. Now, I worked with Pal over 10 years with Howie Hornstein, with groups all over the city. But what I'm doing now is a back to school education to sports program with the Police Athletic League in Philadelphia, where our first site was Tacony Pal. We're doing academic action planning and reading challenge. The 76ers, Mike Goings, alumni U programs, they supply memorabilia for the kids. And if these students keep their grades, attendance, and behavior up, they'll get a chance to go to a Sixer game. Now, prior to that, for the past 3-4 years, I've been in and out of Philly doing silence to violence because 4 years ago, my nephew was killed in West Philly. He's not in drugs, not involved with gangs. He's a grown man. He was just bystander. So my niece, who works at 57 and the Christie Recreation Center, she asked me, what could we do? So we brought back all the legends 4 years ago to do silence to violence. And Billy Cunningham was there, of course. We had a film crew there. We had a radio show. The show that the legends of the city of brotherly love want to reach back and stop this senseless killing. So through that, now that started in 1999 here in Miami. We had a lot of killings here. I went to the White House with Bill Clinton. They named me as a recipient of some pastors and other people to stop the killings that were here in Miami. So I just carried that concept, excuse me, to Philadelphia with Silence to Violence, where I had sponsors like Mike Sharp, financier, Sam Staten Jr., Local Union 332, Tom Gallagher, Local Union 442, Gene Shakin, who sponsored our clinics, is also was the manager of our high school basketball team at Overbrook, a Penn State alumni who's one of the philanthropical people of Penn State, but also sponsors our program. I'll be meeting him the 31st, talking about 4 more sites in Philadelphia with PAL. We're going to be doing November 1st at Elmwood PAL. And what we're going to do there with Officer Paul Pugh, excuse me, academic action planning and reading challenge. So what we're doing is I fly up and I work with Coach Hamilton. Our office is in Germantown, Schufer's Arts Institute. We have a training institute. So what we're going to do is follow up from the silence to violence to now do a back to school educating through sports program with those sponsors. And I'm very fortunate to have Mike Goings and from the 76ers to help, which he's been doing for the past 10 years. So I also just came back from Richmond, Virginia. I've been working with the Washington Wizards for the past, 10 years, where they give memorabilia to our kids, the Wizards. Their community relations persons, Miss Rebecca Wynn, has been sponsoring my workshop in Norfolk and Richmond for the past 10 years. I just came back from doing the Wizards All-Stars. All-Stars stands for Activities Leadership Laboratory. STARS stands for Students Training Around Responsibility. So I just got back from training students in academic and a reading challenge. So I'll be doing that program throughout the year in Richmond, and I'll be back in Philadelphia on the 31st to continue our back to school educating to sports with PAL, Philadelphia Police Athletic in the Sixers. So I try to stay busy, Danny.
That's awesome. If you stop wearing my PAL shirt now, I got the Police Athletic League basketball shirt on. But
well, Bill gave me, Brother Knighton gave me a shirt. Me and QP wear it proudly.
That's
we
awesome.
Really are proud of what the police are doing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I grew up going to Tacony PAL. He's my uncle, of course, but I was on his basketball teams for a lot of years, the citywide team, and I was also on his academic team. We had an academic challenge team where we would we would go up against all the other PAL centers, and there would be like a big tournament at the end of the year, and it was at Temple University. And the one year we ended up winning it. We have a banner hanging up in the St. Bernard's gym, the academic challenge champion. Yeah.
Oh, you got to be proud of that. Yeah, you got to be proud of that. But he does a great job. And a lot of police officers that I've worked with over the years have done such a tremendous job with our youth. And I was in PAL too in West Philly. So I'm really fortunate to have people that are still trying to give back, especially the police officers this year. So it's really an honor for me to come on your show to talk about what we do in the past. You brought back a lot of old memories, Danny.
I appreciate the time, Mr. Jones. It's been awesome. You're a legend. You're a legend, Mr. Jones.
Thank you so much.
One more last question for you. Where can people find you? Maybe on social media, or if there's any way they can help with the community outreach.
Oh, yeah.
Were you going to plug?
Yeah. shootforthestarslegends.com. You can go on our website. And any donations that'll help is to Shoot for the Stars at 333 East Cliveden Street. That's where our office is. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19119. If anyone wants to contribute, it helps what we're trying to do with the youth around the city. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Mr. Jones. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Danny, for having me.